From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez. This is From the South. Guatemala's prosecutor's office has filed corruption charges against the economy minister, a presidential candidate, and 6 lawmakers. Along with the UN-backed International Commission Against Impunity, the prosecutor's office is also asking for their immunity to be lifted. Investigations show congressional votes were bought with bribes of over $6,000 to approve certain laws. This allegedly occurred every 2 months between 2012 and 2015. With less than 24 hours before polls officially open in South Africa, thousands of citizens have already cast their ballots through special votes. These special votes allow voters who cannot vote on election day to do it on a predetermined day before. Those allowed to cast special votes include the disabled, pregnant women, and those with health issues. Almost 800,000 voters were granted permission to cast their ballots before the official polls on Wednesday.
The country's biggest political players have wrapped up their campaigns. It's been 25 years of independence from the white minority apartheid rule, and now South Africans are judging the governing ANC party on its gains in the last 2.5 decades. Party leader Cyril Ramaphosa has urged voters to forgive the party for its mistakes and give it another chance.
This is a moment where we must choose to return to a path of conflict and anger, of corruption and also hunger, or we can choose to embark on a path of renewal and go forward.
The second biggest party in the country, the Democratic Alliance, is convinced it will increase its electoral support after a campaign that poked holes in the ANC's 25 years in power.
This is our moment to step out of our comfort zone. We're going to look to the future now. And on Wednesday, we're going to make a brave choice on Wednesday. We want to think about our children when we vote on Wednesday. But above all, we're going to be brave and brave for our people. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you it's going to be worth it.
There's also the game changer in South African politics. The Economic Freedom Fighters is a splinter group of the ANC and has become a force to be reckoned with in the short time since its establishment in 2013.
We are not fighting against whites. We are fighting to sit on the dinner table. White people, you will no longer eat alone. We are coming to sit on the dinner table, and if you are refusing us on a dinner table, we are going to destroy that dinner table. No one is going to eat until all of us in South Africa eat from the same dinner table.
South Africans have more than 40 parties to choose from in this year's election. Political analysts believe the big parties may lose support to the smaller, newer parties. With many voters still undecided according to polls, it remains to be seen if traditional voting patterns will change. Matuba Mahlachi, Telesur in Johannesburg.
Venezuela's Foreign Affairs Minister Jorge Arreaza is calling on the world to unite against the sanctions imposed by the United States. Taking to Twitter with the hashtag #TrumpUnblockVenezuela, Arreaza said the criminal, economic and financial blockades obstruct citizens' access to food, medicines, basic goods and financing. He said this has affected the country's economic performance since 2015. And Venezuela has faced a commercial blockade for several years. U.S. activists denounced the international and regional political aggression, but the country's social protection policies continue despite the siege. Our correspondent Luis Tavera has the story from Caracas.
Venezuela remains in the crosshairs of White House attacks, threats, and blockades. But social projects in the country don't stop, and that's something that international delegations see as an example of a nation in resistance.
I came here to Venezuela to participate in a housing conference without a tremendous amount of background information in what's going on here. And one of the first things that I learned is that the Constitution in Venezuela has a right to housing, a right to jobs, a right to health care. And what I have learned in the conference, which is that 2.6 million housing units have been built for people here with an anticipation of 5 million entirely, that's not just affordable, but that people cannot be evicted from, is incredible to me.
For them, the reality doesn't line up with the picture painted by the United States and distributed by international media.
I've seen here in Venezuela is a country where people go to work, go to class, go to the beach, go to restaurants, go to concerts, and act like anyone else in any other country in the world. It's a country that functions perfectly normally. People are obviously in support of the Chavista revolution here, and that's very strong. Of course, there are opponents, but they're able to function as well. We see most of the newspapers here are controlled by the right-wing opposition. A large part of the television is, but everything functions perfectly well. People function, people work perfectly easily with what they have here.
The activists said that they now have a first-person account of life in Venezuela.
Of course, I know a fair amount about Venezuela, so I'm not completely shocked. But I have to say that I am shocked by the extreme distortion of the media in the United States. I mean, to use Photoshop to distort pictures, to give pictures of Guaido with lots of people when there's only a few people with him, to give the impression that Maduro doesn't have support. I mean, I was at the rally here on May 1st. The people expressed tremendous love and tremendous support, and the enthusiasm of the people. That is, of course, never conveyed in the United States. Maduro is presented as a dictator, as a fascist almost. I mean, extreme, with lies, 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 lies.
The international delegations that visited Venezuela have witnessed the social achievements the government of Nicolas Maduro offers to its citizens, and highlighted that the Bolivarian country is an example of resistance despite the attempts to create chaos, which have been defeated on the streets through peace.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said there is no support for a military intervention in Venezuela. Lavrov made the remarks after meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The two are in Finland for the meeting for Arctic countries.
During my contacts with my US, European, and South American colleagues, I did not see any support for a reckless military solution in Venezuela. I hope this overall understanding will be put into practice, and there will be no military solution because it would be catastrophic.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much other than I made clear our view that the Venezuelans deserve a democracy that doesn't have any foreign party running their country or involved in their country on a consistent basis in a military way, right? So we want the Cubans out, we want the Iranians out, we want Russia's military out. We had that conversation, and we started to talk about how our interests might be able to find a way forward. I don't know that we'll get to the right place, but we'll have further conversations.
During the Bolivarian Congress of the Peoples in Venezuela, citizens can suggest different topics to improve the course of the revolution. Let's find out more about this meeting.
Venezuela's different social and political movements converge in a single effort to debate the possible deficiencies that may be present in the Bolivarian revolution. Through these initiatives, actions can be coordinated with positive answers.
Today we are taking part in this organizational, inclusive and productive task, and we're here to tell the world that despite the U.S. blockade, we are producing for the people and for a country that is going to be independent.
A line of work is being activated through groups to prioritize future challenges. The discussion addresses ideas regarding the economic, political and social system of the country.
We can see right now that we've made achievements during the revolution. We've made advance, but there is still much to do. We have to deepen in, and that's why we are having this debate.
It's important to enhance mechanism to face the escalating aggressions against Venezuela. Meanwhile, parts of the opposition answer Juan Guaido's call to protest, even though he's really someone who led an attempted coup.
President Maduro is organizing the People's Offensive. There are those who believe that with a coup, the revolutionary forces were going to back down. Let the gringos know that the people are here. Chavez is here. The voice of Bolivar is here. Here we are, loyal to Maduro.
Over 6 million people across the Venezuela's 24 states answered the President Nicolás Maduro's call to be part of the discussions. And from those, the proposals will have 3 more stages.
We have agreed an extraordinary task, which are recommendations that we have to make to the President. But we have to be very clear about what we are doing right now. We have to win and to succeed once again against the coup directed from the US and those here who followed them.
The results of these consultations will strengthen the Homeland Plan, an agenda for the economic and social development of the country between 2019 and 2025.
In Mexico, the country's Attorney General says a criminal probe will be launched into Brazilian construction company Odebrecht within 60 days. Alejandro Gertz Manero made the announcement at an event in Mexico City on Monday. He said there has been new evidence and the case could be prosecuted as organized crime. Odebrecht has been at the center of a corruption investigation in Brazil, which has rippled across Latin America. 14 people have been killed after a private jet crashed in the north of Mexico. The plane went down in the state of Coahuila after taking off in the U.S. city of Las Vegas. 10 of the victims were members of the same family who traveled to the United States for a boxing match. The cause of the crash is unknown. We have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
Who's moving the chess? What interests motivate the actors behind each event?
Se despliega el tablero.
Uncritical Moves investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Cuba has ratified its commitment to the Association of Caribbean States. Foreign Affairs Minister Bruno Rodriguez met with Secretary General June Soomer in Havana on Tuesday. Rodriguez took to Twitter to reaffirm Cuba's support for the ongoing revitalization process of the regional organization. The Spanish Minister of Trade, Industry and Tourism, Maria Reyes Maroto, has met with business owners in Cuba. After the meeting, the Spanish minister announced the launch of the plan to convert part of the Cuban debt into infrastructure projects. This comes as the United States strengthens its blockade against the island via the Helms-Burton Act.
The counterpart fund, which I said was going to be activated, of 375 million euros, is good news because it will allow Spanish companies to continue investing in Cuba and therefore strengthen their commercial and investment ties, which we have seen today in different business forums.
Now we move to Argentina. Social organizations held a forum to demand freedom for political prisoners. Let's take a look at those activities.
The slogan, "With political prisoners, there's no democracy." Activists, lawyers, social and union leaders got together to discuss the current reality of Argentina.
En esta gestión del gobierno de Macri,
Macri's administration is harming human rights on a daily basis. This is why we got together. We need to condemn these violations and demand an end to human rights abuses.
Ha generado este foro.
Relatives of political prisoners also joined the proceedings.
The rights we gained after so many years of fighting and struggling are being attacked. We are taking many steps back. Years ago, if you had different ideas, they would make you disappear. Nowadays, people are imprisoned, but the goal is the same, to silence our voice.
Lawyers who took part in the forum bore witness to the ongoing government persecution.
The policies pursued during the past 3 years have led to many imprisonments, including illegal detentions. But on top of this, the government is trying to shut down a number of media outlets and limit press freedom.
Many young people also joined the event.
Argentina is moving backwards in matters of human rights at a rate that's unheard of since we regained our democracy. We all need to stand up in defense of democracy. We need to join together and share our fight. We need to demand the freedom of all political prisoners.
Many hope that in the upcoming presidential elections, this government finally comes to an end.
A museum in Buenos Aires is hosting an exhibition of dresses previously owned by Eva Perón, marking 100 years since she was born. Popularly known as Evita, she died from cancer at age 33. She was a political and social leader, also an actress and a fashion icon. She was married to President Juan Domingo Perón and was the country's most famous first lady. She served as the first president of the Peronist female party that lasted from 1949 to 1955.
The important thing was that she opened the door for many more women to participate. And today it is even more the case because she spoke of equality, and today the world fights for that, so that the rich won't be so rich and the poor not so poor.
And women also took to the streets of the capital to commemorate Evita's life. Dressing as the former First Lady, women gathered to remember the outstanding figure. They say Evita's vision is still alive in the country's politics 6 decades after her death. Many respect her for helping women obtain the right to vote and securing labor benefits for the working class.
Evita is the spiritual head of the nation, and she serves as a guide for all political change, especially now with women's rights issues at the forefront. Evita is also the precursor to Cristina Fernandez, who served as president of Argentina from 2007 to 2015.
In other news, climate change is being linked to the spread of a fungal disease that ravages banana crops in several countries in the region. The black sigatoka fungus originated in Asia in the late 20th century and has since spread to Latin America and the Caribbean. It causes severely infected leaves to die, significantly reducing fruit yield and causing mixed and premature ripening of the bunches. According to research by the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom, changes to moisture and temperature conditions have increased the risk of the virus by more than 44%. We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event?
Se despliega el tablero.
Uncritical Moves investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Protesters in Sudan have said fasting during the holy month of Ramadan will not stop them from demanding a civilian rule. Demonstrators said they will spend Ramadan in front of the military headquarters until the military hands over power to a civilian government. Sudan has been rocked by protests which were initially triggered by an increase in the bread price before targeting longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir.
While raising the slogan of the Holy Ramadan in Sudan, today people gave up their customs and traditions that they used to practice in previous years during Ramadan and came to the protest sites, believing in their cause and in solidarity until the demands for which they came out for in the revolution are fulfilled.
The brother of former Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika and two former intelligence chiefs are in custody in charges of plotting against the state. Court records show they are also accused of attacking the authority of the army. The three have appeared briefly before a military tribunal in the capital, Algiers. They were key figures during the era of Bouteflika, who resigned in April following weeks of protests. Forces from General Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army have clashed with troops backing the UN-recognized Government of National Accord on the outskirts of Tripoli. The fighting comes just hours after the United Nations called for a week-long humanitarian truce, following a month of fighting that has killed around 400 people. Libya descended into chaos in 2011 after NATO-backed rebels overthrew former President Muammar Gaddafi. Meanwhile, hundreds of Sudanese migrant families in Tripoli have taken refuge at a school run by the International Public Scout and Girl Scouts movement. The fighting between General Haftar's forces and the Government of National Unity has displaced over 50,000 people in and around Tripoli. Refugees held in various detention centers in the city are some of the worst affected.
The number of families that the Scout movement has taken care of, according to the latest statistics, is 2,718 families. Since the beginning of the crisis until now, the Scout movement has been organizing meetings. And just like our slogan, a Scout is always ready, we have been prepared to do what is necessary to help others by creating new committees in order to ease the burden on the citizens.
The United Nations has urged Israel and Palestine to de-escalate the latest violence around the Gaza Strip. This comes after rockets launched over the weekend killed at least 25 people in Gaza and 4 from Israel. A UN special coordinator will travel to Cairo to continue ceasefire negotiations with both sides.
The latest escalation over the weekend was the worst since the 2014 conflict. Fortunately, following a series of engagements with Egypt, Qatar, and all concerned parties, we were able to contain it, based on understandings on the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the livelihoods of people, with no violence at the Gaza perimeter fence. It is now up to the parties to implement these understandings. If the calm is sustained, the United Nations believes that we will be able to discuss longer-term arrangements to improve the situation and provide relief for the people of Gaza by easing the closures and supporting the reconciliation process.
After being jailed for more than 500 days, 2 Reuters journalists have been freed in Myanmar. Wa Lone and Kia Soeo were pardoned by the president with thousands of other prisoners in mass amnesties, which are customary around the country's traditional New Year. They had been arrested for investigating the killing of Rohingya Muslims by security forces. They were convicted of breaking the Official Secrets Act and sentenced to 7 years in prison.
Inside in the prison and also around the world, people who are wishing to release us. So I would like to say thank you very much for everything. I'm really happy and excited to see my family and my colleagues. And I can't wait to go my newsroom now.
Dozens of women have gathered outside India's Supreme Court to call for a new investigation after a sexual harassment complaint against the Chief Justice was dismissed. A former court assistant accused Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi of sexual harassment last year. He has denied the charge, and an internal panel of judges dismissed the case. Paramilitary police with water cannons were deployed in the area to disperse the crowd. Most protesters were taken away by authorities soon after they gathered.
We are fearing that what we have gained all through the long-standing struggles and sacrifices, that all will be in not used for anymore if the Supreme Court behave like this.
A Madrid court has ruled that former Catalan independence leader Carles Puigdemont can run in the European Parliament election on May 26th after an attempt by the Spanish right wing to get him barred.
Carles Puigdemont, Clara Ponsati and Tommy Comyn will be able to be candidates in the European elections on May 26th. The right-wing Popular Party and Citizens Party tried to prevent this from happening by asking the Central Electoral Court to ban them from the race. But this time a Spanish court ruled that their political rights are intact, even though they are wanted for organizing the independence referendum in October 2017.
People who think that they can stop us by twisting the law should lose all hope, because we have demonstrated that if we can fight this battle in independent European institutions, we will win it. Surely we have witnessed a shameful attempt at alerting the electoral process. This is unfit for a democracy. We should not have to fight for it.
We have to show ourselves in the world that limiting rights, repression, imprisonments and exiles have only strengthened our determination to be free. They will not be able to stop the independence of Catalonia forever, despite the fact that they are willing to sacrifice their own democracy.
The judicial team for the former president of Catalonia is now studying the possibility of presenting measures against the Central Electoral Court. Meanwhile, in Catalonia, the yearly meeting of the Catalan National Assembly has taken place. The Assembly is one of the main entities that supports independence, a new roadmap towards that goal, which provides for a unilateral route if in the following Catalan elections supporters of self-determination exceed 50% of the votes.
A negotiated independence is always better, but what happens with an agreed referendum? It depends on others, and if they don't support the referendum, what are we going to do? So that cannot be our only plan. We have to work to achieve a plan that depends on us.
The pro-independence groups know the obstacles that the Spanish state will put in their way. The right-wing Popular Party has said that it will appeal the decision about Puigdemont before the Constitutional Court. It's clear they fear that Puigdemont will win a seat in the European Parliament. If that happens, he can recover his immunity and return to Spain.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can read more on these stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to also join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.